And hello, welcome to the MyData webinar exploring the second principle of MyData, the individual as a point of integration. We will be looking this principle through concrete examples of personal APIs. The purpose of the webinar series is to share relevant know-how, practical use cases, and theoretical input on how we are making human-centric personal data happen. My name is Ansku Tuomainen, and I am the communications lead for MyData Global. I will moderate today's webinar. We are happy to have Joe Vercammen from Meeco presenting the API of Me solution. Joe is the CTO of Meeco, a personal data and distributed ledger platform that enables people to securely exchange data with the people and organizations they trust. Joe is an active member in the identity and blockchain community, a contributor to a range of standards and identity working groups, and a global speaker at fintech and identity events. And after Joe's presentation, we give the stage to Lal Chandran from iGrant.io, showcasing their platform for individual APIs, mobile SDKs, and portals. Lal is the co-founder and CTO of iGrant.io, a Swedish RegTech platform providing a cloud-based personal data exchange and consent mediation platform, enabling a fully transparent and trustable data sharing economy. Their aim is to unlock the value of personal data in a fully compliant and human-centric manner. But before heading into today's exciting presentations, I'd like to start with a few words about MyData, especially for those who are attending or listening to the webinar for the first time. MyData is an idea and an alternative vision for ethical use of personal data. It's also a movement and a community and a global organization. The core idea of MyData is that people like you and I should have an easy way to see where the data about us goes, specify who can use it, and change these decisions over time. We believe that for this to become a reality in the world, we need to push for three big shifts. We need to move from formal to actionable rights, from data protection to data empowerment, and from closed to open ecosystems. These three shifts complemented with the 6 MyData principles are further explained in the MyData Declaration that you can find on our website. The MyData community and movement is facilitated by MyData Global organization and members that you see on the screen. We want to see the value created for people and at the same time value created for organizations, so everyone wins. We are joining together business, legal, tech, and society sectors. You can read more about us at mydata.org. Okay, so finally I will pass the ball to Joe, who will also share his screen for the slides.
What I will present today is a presentation, but also want to show something practical. So that's why I shared my whole desktop. And to start with, I just want to just briefly explain what Meeco is or what Meeco is about. So we are a data platform which allow people to manage their personal data in a very secure and permissioned layer. So when they share peer-to-peer data, then it always happens in an encrypted environment. And the whole idea is that we would bring the data back under control of the end user. So the biggest part, and this is one of our statements of our manifesto that I presented here, is that our business model is not about mining or selling data, but it's more to enable people to utilize their personal data in a frictionless way to get personalized services. And we believe that the value is not in selling data, but actually enabling data to new business models and new use cases. And for that, what they actually have done is actually we start building tools for that. And the biggest tool that we have is our API platform. And this API platform consists out of different modules, which is a consent engine, a digital identity, which I think is quite important. We have a vault, a secure vault system where you can store encrypted data. We have a wallet, which makes it easy to securely authenticate in a peer-to-peer manner. An encryption engine, and this is all built upon open standards like the OpenAPI 3.0 standards. With this package, it allows you to create a data pod, or what it mean, for instance, for MyData would be that you can build with this type of product, MyData operator platform. So how we proceed with this is that currently we look for business partners, and these business partners are currently mostly focused in the financial sector. So our product is actually been has actually been through an audit, which we wanted to see also, and it's also a requirement from a banking perspective, that we are have to be aligned with certain standards like the ISO 2007-1 standard, but also the NIST security framework standards. We also have a library where we use currently for the encryption, which is using AES 256 encryption, AES 266 encryption, where we actually can prove that our data is very secure, handled inside the data vault. The keys itself are managed inside the environment. We can give the end user full control, which means that we can't read the data. That only can be unlocked by the individual itself. And for this, we actually did our first use case on the market, which is with KBC. For KBC, we actually delivered a secure enclave, which is managed or powered by Meeco. We handle for them the environment, the management of the environment, but also the updates of this digital safe. And the idea is that people can actually put their information, their most precious information, inside the digital safe, so that it's can be keep well guarded between in a product that it is under banking standards. So this is for now where we stand with the current product. We are still looking to find new partners in this segment, where we deliver a full-fledged secure enclave environment. This is actually built on top of this type of architecture, where you see on the blue side, the blue side, the enterprise environment. So this could be the KBC environment. This is actually our environment that is managed by us, and even actually managed by a third party, where we provide actually three types of services. One is the vault, which is you see here. There you can actually store and put data coming either from a third party by a push, or you can actually pull data inside the vault, or you can actually add data yourself by self-asserted data. An product that we are building or is still in building phase is our wallet, where we actually work together with the standards around decentralized identity, where we have a wallet. This wallet allows you to use verified credentials to be shared with other connections, really peer-to-peer, where you can actually exchange information. The difference in our approach is that we think that keeping the keys inside of the wallet itself is not a way to go forward. We see more that the key store management will be happening in the vault itself, where you can actually unlock the keys to sign certain actions on your wallet. The system that we allow at the moment is that we have our own infrastructure with a public Meeco infrastructure where we have the Meeco app, which is currently deployed on it. And or you can actually have this environment like we did for KBC, that we deploy it, manage it for a third party, where they build these data pods or vault type of services on top of it. But there is a next part, and I think that's the reason why we're giving also this presentation, is that we are actually thinking to open up our environment, and that actually other people start building data pods on top of this technology, and extend that with also alternative use cases. So we are believing that opening it up to the community would help more the growth and the acceptability of our technology. So starting from the 20th of April, we'll have a full developer portal running. The idea for now is that it will be only open for testing and exploring purposes. This developer portal is primarily focused on developers, CIOs, really the IT part of a company, to explore the API and to see how it can fit in their current business use cases, how they could enable new businesses, or actually refactor their some efficiencies in their current business models. So yeah, so this is what we are doing now. So currently what we will open is a sandbox environment. So it means that we can't guarantee that the data is persistent over time. But in the near future, there will be an opening up where we will enable this also for production grade environments, where you can actually sign up to a certain subscription model. It's possible, if you have interest or to get more information or details about it, to pre-register it for the developer portal, which is through this website link. What we also saw is that with our current API process, it can be very complex to do certain handling with APIs. And we had this idea last year, where we thought that if we want to see our developers as an end customer, you have to treat them as end customers. So you need to bring a lot of value to them that makes their life much easier to use those tools. So what we have done is we have created a set of open source libraries, an SDK, and some accelerated tools, which allows developers to integrate faster and easier with our environment. So the whole intent is that we want to allow people with minimal knowledge to create in 50 minutes a vault-to-vault interaction, so that you are enabled to at least create 2 vaults and share some information between those vaults. And that is actually the demo that I will show today, how it's been done. And it's mainly the driver behind it is the CLI library, which we have implemented to allow some abstraction layer on top of the API, so that you don't have to know every call in the API to do certain actions on it. It's available on GitHub, so you can download it. And in the near future, we want to extend it also with some boilerplate code, UX component libraries, which also will enable you to build real live applications in a faster and easier way. So that's, I think, the focus with the SDKs. And then as last, what I had was the fact that we can also speak about our documentation. We have written some extensive documentation about our API, so that also people who want to go a little bit deeper into the product can actually find out how our inner workings work, how everything is set up, and learn more about our product and how everything is integrated, so that it would help during their guide to explore the API. So we have full described API descriptions through Swagger files, which is the lowest link, and general documentation where we have starter guides, but also an explanation on the terminology and concepts. So what I will do is now I will show you the actions in the API. And what I've done is actually I already have a key on the API, but that would enables me to use the CLI that has been downloaded on my PC to interact with the API. So the first step that I want to do, but I think I have to make it a little bit bigger in size. So what I do is actually here I want to create a user for Alice, and what it will do is it will pipe this to a YAML file, and now there are different actions are created. So first of all, is we create the user, but we also create a key store where we store the keys and admission tokens for Alice, and we also will create a vault. So this is the information that happens behind the screens. And this is actually done in one commando, but if you would go a little bit deeper and do that for some other calls, then you would see that it's like 4 or 5 different API calls that you have to do sequentially to get to that step. So this actually helps a lot in development, because you have an abstract layer that deals with all these inner commandos that you have to do to just create one simple user. So I just want to show what's the output. So actually what we get is this YAML file, and what this will create for us is we have some data around Alice, which is her secret, the access token to access the key store. We have an access token to access her vault, and we have some encryption keys to encrypt the data that she stores inside her vault. Basically, what we'll do is now is just think, for instance, what we would store for data. So we just asked you to see what for templates that we have. And I think what we want to do is we want to create a vehicle. And to be frank, that is something that I've already done, just to save some time, is that I've created a vehicle based on the template, which is this. So if you execute a certain command, you can create these templates, which is you only have to fill in the information. And then if you save this, you can actually use this to create an item inside your vault. So, and the idea is that I've created this information of Alice, her car. She's a very big fan of BMW. So what happens now is that, one moment. Yeah, what happens now is that we want to create this item for her in her vault. So we get this information back from the API, which is actually creating an item with a lot of meta information inside of the vault itself. So, and the next step would be that I'm actually thinking of sharing this information also with Bob. So
just remind about the time that we're soon heading
yeah,
to the
yeah. So I'm almost there. So I'm creating also a user for Bob. So the next step would be, and that's actually the thing that I want to explain a little bit briefly, is that that now we are creating the same thing for Bob. So it means that Alice and Bob have different encryption keys, but Alice wants to share some information. And what we do is now, this command will create this connection between Alice and Bob. And that creates actually a set of keys that allows Bob and Alice to share information. So, one moment. The next command. Okay. So basically, we have now created an invitation, but this is one command. And if you would see in my slides, is that behind this, there happens a lot of actions. So we actually, at this point of time, we exchanged a key to Bob, from Alice to Bob, which is a public key. And again, on that, through that public key, Bob created a private key and a public key back to send to Alice. So the connection from Alice to Bob is actually built on top of a public key, and from Bob to Alice also. And this is also stored in these vault and in the key store. These private keys and the public keys are stored as type of connections to Alice and Bob in the vault. But these type of actions, these are all separate API calls, which is a hassle if you don't know in the beginning to do this. So this whole layer that we do with this CLI is making this abstraction an abstraction layer, which makes it a lot easier for Alice and Bob to share the information between each other. So just to go forth, and we'll get there, and we can wrap it up. Is that we create now, for instance, we have created a connection, but now we want to share. So what happens is that we'll share this item, this BMW item, with from Alice with Bob. So what I've done in the command here is that we will create a shared space for Alice and Bob, given their connections, given their keys, for this specific item. And I have a problem now. No, something went wrong now, so I'm sorry. I've
Just,
but okay.
Have you integrated any zero knowledge proofs yet?
Well, that's we are the current API now is actually is zero value. So we know for each item. So you saw this item, for instance, we will know that this item is a vehicle. We don't know what the information is of itself, but we know that it's a vehicle. So that is actually first step where we can start reasoning about it. And now, indeed, based on this, we have started a project to start reasoning about the data itself. Because if you can already identify that that this item is linked to a specific ontology, then you can start reasoning about the data itself without disclosing it. So that's now the next step. So we have a blockchain project where we're trying to find which type of algorithms that we want to use, and probably we'll use type of combination of algorithms, because there's the best one is bulletproofs. But the problem with bulletproofs is that the time to calculate everything takes so much effort that it can't be done in real life transactions. So that's actually the problem. So you need to have, for certain use cases, you want to have like 100% certainty that that the value where you reason about don't have to be disclosed, and it's certain that what you try to prove is 100%. But in other cases, that's not necessary. But then you can use other algorithms like snarks and so on that are less have a lesser probability than bulletproofs, and that's what we are experimenting with. So to see what's actually the best solution for each use case, and I think it will end up with several types of algorithms to do zero proof of knowledge.
Thank you, Joe. I think I have to interrupt you here to give the stage to Lal, and then we will have, then after Lal's presentation, we will have a moment for a general discussion. I took the question from before also, what was posted in the chat. But then, yeah, go ahead, Lal, do your magic.
So hello, everyone. My name is Lal Chandran. I'm the co-founder and CTO for iGrand.io. It's an honor for me to be presenting to the MyData community. Since you guys are all onboarded with the personal data economy, I will not preach to the choir. So I'll jump straight into how iGrand.io enables individuals as a point of integration towards any organization using their personal data. In my presentation, I have only 3 slides, and then I will straight away go to the actual platform demonstration itself. And the 3 slides are pretty much to give you a context here as to how iGrand.io enables a data operator service that allows individuals to control their data organizations. And with their user consents, they can share data in real time. For organizations, we enable personal data exchange in a fully auditable way. The fundamental aspect of our solution itself is that we do not store any organizational data. We enable a data exchange or data flow from a given data source to a data receiver. To summarize a value proposition for individuals and organization perspective, for individuals, we provide 3 different tooling systems. One is a bunch of mobile SDKs that can easily be integrated to any third-party apps for any organization. We provide a privacy dashboard, a web portal-based one. And then, of course, we have an aggregated mobile app for all organizations. I will be demonstrating that app today in my presentation. Using our individual tooling, the individuals can exercise their rights as a data subject, and they can also enable real-time personal data exchange, for example, using a QR code. On the organization side, we enable an extremely cost-efficient compliance solution to the new data regulations like the GDPR. Our REST APIs can be integrated to existing IT systems in an easy way. Our services, we enable new services in a human-centric way by empowering individuals. And our belief is that with that concept, we can enable new business opportunities as part of a wider data exchange ecosystem. Last but not the least, our solution is also provide an opportunity for organizations to demonstrate transparency And an extremely auditable solution enables them to even use the audit logs in a court if there's any kind of disputes between organizations or between user and an organization as such. The sole purpose is very much to create a win-win between organizations and individuals. A very, very brief look at our overall stack. So I have like the left side, which is pretty much our core stack as such. And on the right side is pretty much our extended stack for data exchange using a distributed ledger technology. On the extreme top of it, I have the client interfaces where we provide enterprise dashboards and developer APIs, largely focusing on organizations wanting to integrate our APIs in their IT system. On the slight orange side is like the client or user interfaces. As I previously mentioned, we provide interfaces where organizations can deploy a privacy dashboard. They can use our mobile SDK as is, or of course they can use our APIs as well in their existing mobile clients. And we also have our own aggregated mobile app where it is pretty much free for individuals and for them to actually view, share their data across different organizations. We have like a real-time notification systems, etc. That is pretty much as per the GDPR. The right side is pretty much around the data exchange part of it. We use Hyperledger Fabric network, which enables a fully auditable tamper-proof audit system that logs in every transaction in real time. So with that note, I will straight away go to my demonstration. So I have two different demonstrations that I will be showing. One is the actual platform demonstration itself, where I will also be showing how a person can pretty much enable a real-time personal data share to any organization. And in my second one is pretty much how a identity API can be integrated into a real concrete use case. In this case, I've used a AI-driven facial recognition system. I'll come back to that later. So the first one. So on my screen on the Chrome browser, what you see is our enterprise dashboard. So in this example, I'm going to show you how I log in as an administrator of one of the schools here in Sweden, or a municipality here in Sweden. So that once logged in, so it's a completely self-service portal where the school administrator can pretty much upload their data or information base that they would like to publish towards individuals. So on the left side of the menu, once all the basic information is uploaded, they're able to update their data model. So what we have done in the backend of iGround.io is standardizing a data structure based on the purpose and the actual data attributes that belong to different purposes. I'll again come back to it in a short while. On the left side, we have ability to manage end users for any organization. So how the subscription system would be, or how the what kind of identity system would actually be used by the organization, etc. We have a very simple query system where an organizational administrator can query for different concerns. We have a possibility to enable notifications. We also have an ability to deploy an own privacy dashboard based on the data model that is published in this section. Of course, the various account services are part of, as with any SaaS service, we have that. We also have the developer API system with all the, say, API tokens readily available. And the developer API is pretty much live, where organizations, it's all REST APIs basically. Organizations can pretty much use our APIs if they wish to integrate our system into their existing IT modules. So there are different ways, and last but not list, I also have the support event system. So this is like a webhook-driven system, which is pretty much catering to all different kinds of GDPR user requests. So, for example, all the download requests or data correction requests, etc., coming over here. Of course, and this could also be easily integrated via a notification system in their existing IT system. So now back to the data module part of it. So this is an example where we are providing a form to update our backend data model. So it's a simple way you can add different purposes for which any organization would be adding using personal data. In this example, I have a bunch of different purposes, and then I also have a bunch of different data attributes that is attached to different purposes. So before I go ahead, let me show you how this will actually be published. So once all these data model updates are done, the organization can pretty much publish their say data models or data schema towards the end consumers. So on the left side now, I'm going to show you the user interface, or one of the different user interfaces, which is like the aggregated mobile app. So in this example, so I have the boot and scholar in the very, very bottom of it. So as you can see, everything is self-provisioned by boot and scholar, and I, as a user of boot and scholar, is able to clearly view in a transparent way what are the different purposes boot and scholar uses my data for, and I can jump into any different purpose and clearly see what are the different attributes. I can read the policy that is governing that particular purpose, and if it is consent driven, for example, if it is like, let's say, I can enable marketing and newsletters, or I can enable third-party data sharing, for example. So in this case, let me just allow third-party data sharing. And I also have a possibility to selectively disallow any particular kind of data attribute. So within the third-party data sharing, I said, I don't want anybody to see my mother tongue. So I can disallow that particular attribute. So that's like the very, very basic functions that we offer, where from a user perspective, he or she is able to mark his or her choices and consent in an easy way. The users are also able to read, of course, read the privacy policy. They can also make different requests towards the organization. For example, downloading a data. So and they can monitor the progress of that particular request that they've made. In this case, they have requested the download of data, which has been acknowledged by boot and scholar. And once it's processed, you can see the request being processed. So let me show you how this is actually notified to the boot and scholar IT system. So over here, you can see that a request has actually been reached. So this is just purely to demonstrate how easy it is actually for a user, for an administrator to view the different user requests and act on it. Again, all this thing can be automated via our notification and webhook system, via user API, for example. So using our interface, the DPO, for example, can also mark the different statuses as well manually. But the whole idea itself is that our API, notification API, is integrated to the existing IT system, where this is done in an automated way. They are also able to do other requests like data delete requests and modify data requests as well using this system. Users are able to also see every different consent history that is available for a particular organization. This can be seen for a particular at the organization level, or this can be seen at a cross-organizational level for every different organizations, and of course providing a very usable interface where they can sort it with organizations, etc. So let me go back to the boot and scholar. Yeah. So And of course, yeah, privacy policy and everything is also can easily be viewed from our console. Now, what we do in the back end of iGrand itself is like a normalization of different data models across different companies, and that is precisely how we enable a data exchange. So let me show you an example of how a typical data sharing could actually be happening in reality. So let's say Buden Scholar is the one who is participating in this seminar or webinar, and they want to actually take real-time consents from you all. So they can say data for webinar and put a policy link or even a text item. In our next release, we have a possibility to even write a text instead of providing a policy link, and then say they can say the lawful base of processing as consents and save it. And then the administrator says, okay, for the data for the webinar, I would like to know the name of every single individual that is participating in this webinar. I would like to have the postal address, and I would also like to know the gender of everybody who is participating, let's say.
Just reminding about the time.
Sure. So once this is done, the user is able to download a QR code, or the administrator is able to download a QR code and post it to the individuals in an easy way. So let me show you how this works now. So this is the QR code that is being generated. So using the app and also using our SDK, you see on the very right top corner. So any user is able to easily share their data in real time or consent and see what precise data is being collected for a given purpose. The purpose here is, of course, the data for webinar, and they are able to share their data from the Buden Scholar to the entity that is actually taking in the data. So that's to show you how a typical consent-based data exchange and data sharing system actually is designed using iGrand. A very, very brief intro to our, or a demonstration of our Hyperledger-based transaction logging. So every transaction, as I said, is fully logged and fully auditable. So organizations can also create their own node using iGrand system, where they can pretty much integrate to their IT system directly. And all these things are also fully audit ready and immutable. My second demonstration, or the demonstration, is around how this kind of API is actually used in a real-time system. For example, a AI-driven facial recognition system. The purpose of demonstrating this is purely to show how fast and real-time it is for any AI machinery to integrate iGrand APIs. So in this example, I have a facial recognition system on the right side, and on the left side is my user app. So the facial recognition system integrates iGrand.io API and identify me as an individual. So let me very quickly show you this. So I log on using the iGrand system, and then it is iGrand.io organization that actually is doing a video surveillance, for example. So until that is, for now, it is actually disabled, and you can see that the facial recognition system do not identify me, or my face is blurred out. And once the user opts in, the face is actually enabled straight away. And this can be done at the purpose level, or this can actually be done at a minute attribute level. So this allow and disallow can also be done at an attribute level, where similar kind of functionality can be integrated. So again, this is to purely demonstrate how real-time our capabilities are and how easy it is to actually integrate our APIs to any AI machinery. So that's pretty much my very quick presentation for the day. So back to you, Ansku, or if you have any questions, I'm glad to answer that.
Thank you, Lal. I have one here question that I took from the chat. There was also about the dashboard, but I see you showed it just now in the end. And what is the incentive for the users to share any data?
Yeah, that's a very valid question. So what, we've been really researching a lot around it. One option, of course, is like some kind of a loyalty-based system, a point-based system where they are incentivized, provide a certain discounts in stores and things like that. So what our platform really provides is that we only log the transaction. We leave it to the organizations to actually define what incentive they would provide to the users in order for them to actually get personal data. We could definitely, at some point, we also could easily incentivize the users with money as well.
Thank you. Any other questions from the participants? Then I would like to invite Joe back to the discussion to talk more generally about the dynamics and issues around this second principle of MyData, putting the individual as a point of integration. Do you participants have any more general comments at the moment to this topic or questions? It doesn't seem to be at the moment. So I have a few questions here prepared in advance. So can these solutions bring benefit to the current situation of the pandemic?
If I can speak it, it's how I would see it is actually that with the current pandemic, one of the major thing that we could help is avoid spreading the virus. So I think there are a lot of examples in China where there are apps now that track people the whole their day just to know where they are, and if they are infected, to know if they have been in contact with other people. Of course, these apps are very invasive because they are very invasive to your personal life sphere, and I think there will be, I think now with the coronavirus, there will be imbalance needed between exposing data to help society, but also protect your privacy. And what I think is what we are trying to build with our product is guarantee the privacy, but also enabling certain use cases that can help community or can help the individual itself. And that I think will definitely is shown now that we missed it. We miss in Europe this type of products, where in China it can be done because China, privacy is not an issue there. But here in Europe, we are a very democratic society. We are entitled to our rights, and we want to execute those rights. And we need to marry it with helping, also giving our data for certain things. But we need to have the assurance that the data can happen in an anonymous way, or at least don't track us to our personal life itself, or can be misused for other purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I can add in there. Yeah, well said, Joe. One of the use cases that we are working on is in a similar line. We are doing an open source project where you can track the route where you have actually traveled, and you can get a scoring of a potential pandemic affecting you, for example. So in this use case that we are working with, the location data, you can pretty much consent to picking that location data from a telecom operator, for example, and based on the sensitivity or based on the data that is actually available with the authority, you can get a score of a potential how is it going to impact you in reality. So this is also one example of, back to your question that you asked, how do you see the benefits to user? The benefits to users in this case is that I'm willing to share my past location data. In return, I'm actually going to get a scoring of how susceptible I am in getting infected, for example.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We had the question in the chat. I think they are a little bit related to each other. There's two questions. Can data be pulled from an API, be processed, maintaining zero knowledge? I don't understand how you maintain zero knowledge currently when Bob knows the features of Alice's car. And I think this is a reference to Joe's presentation.
Yeah. So currently, what happens is in the example I've shown, there is no zero knowledge proof there. What happens is you share in an encrypted space the data, but of course, in another example, it could be done. But then it means that we'll need another trust anchor, which is will be a blockchain component. That allows you to verify that the token that you get is actually something that represents the data itself, is authentic against the data itself. And therefore, it's very complex. There are some type of algorithms that you can do. So it depends on the use case, how you would share the data. So you can say, okay, I want to share in that encrypted data space all the data, full disclosure, which is the example that I've shown you now. But you can also go for progressive disclosure. I would say, for instance, only share certain attributes of that item, or I would go for the least option, which means then you go for zero knowledge proofs. But I think it will always depend on the use case where you would need it. For instance, at certain point of time, for instance, like maybe you want to buy a car, knowing that it's a luxury brand is maybe enough to start the process. But at the end, you need to have maybe the whole full-fledged information to get a perfect quote on what you want. And like, for instance, if you, for instance, getting a loan, for instance, knowing that you have that your income is above a certain amount is enough. But finalizing the quote maybe needs to do full disclosure of the information. So it really depends on which step that you are in the use case, and also it depends on the use case itself to fulfill certain things. Like, for instance, drinking alcohol, you don't need to have identity, you only need to have proof that you are over 18, which can be done through zero knowledge proofs.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Joe. And there is a question, business development-wise, are you focused more of companies and service providers or data producers?
At the moment, we are focused on what we call trust anchors. These are big companies like banks, telecom operators that already have a certain trust factor, that already has some information about you. But also that has also some real strong procedures on data usage, but also on compliance side, and that's why that we partner with them to actually create an ecosystem around that bank or telecom operator. That's our main focus at the moment. But now we are actually looking to open it or broaden it more, to see if we can find other players on the market that can build use cases on top of this API in a more open ecosystem. So that's a next step.
Thank you. As we are facing the end of the webinar, I would just like to ask one last question of both of you. Is there a way that the MyData community can support you?
Yeah, I can answer that from our side. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at what we have done as a company, is pretty much creating a common data model that can be used by individuals and organizations. So what we realized very quickly, and that's also one reason why we are part of the MyData Community Operator initiative, is that we need to have like common interfaces, which is like standardized and interoperable. And this is, if you really want to enable a data sharing ecosystem, you need to make these things standardized at the earliest possible time. So in our case, yes, MyData community is the way by which we will standardize these data structures. So whether it is consent data structure or data exchange structure, and that is precisely the reason why we are participating heavily in the data operator thematic group.
From our case, I think KBC is definitely a success story that we were able to find a first party that to connect with us. Challenges indeed. I think the biggest challenge is always how to marry technology with compliance and also with the business, because for instance, compliance have typically in a bank, you have like real big demands, which creates a lot of friction in the application, but still it has to be able to open certain things on the business side. And that's the biggest challenge, how you would create like something that is very secure. We have maybe high proofing identity data in it to access it, but still make it useful and frictionless on the market. I think that was one of the biggest challenges that we have. And now I think it's also finding starting up or building up an ecosystem around it, where you are able you put the data inside the vault, but then it's, of course, once it's inside there, you need to as an individual, you want to unlock that data to access new use cases. And that is also something that I feel that takes a lot of time to get there with a partner.
So thank you both very much for these presentations, and everybody here for joining the webinar today. It will be recorded and then shared again through YouTube, and hopefully many people will hear these points. And for the ones who are not there yet, I encourage you to join the MyData Global Slack workspace to continue discussions on this topic. And you can also support the MyData movement by becoming an official member. You will be in the fine company of Meeco and iGrant.io among almost 100 other organizations. You can go there through mydata.org/join. So thanks again, and I wish you a great day, and let's stay in touch.